I'm very proud to represent this party as a fisheries spokesman, not least because of my background. Born and brought up in Hull, my family has links to the fishing industry that go back to the 1800s. My brother Keith paid the ultimate price when he was a crew member of the Ross Cleveland that sank off the coast of Iceland. Growing up, everyone I knew in Hull's Hazel Road community, where I lived, worked in some capacity within that fishing industry. Thousands of jobs depended on fishing, whether that be at sea, on shore, or in the retail areas surrounding the docks. These proud people worked hard to put food on the nation's table. However, today, as with many coastal communities up and down the country, Hull's fishing industry has pretty much ceased to exist. Much of this decline can be traced back to the Conservative Prime Minister, Edward Heath. In 1973, his betrayal of the fishing industry, and he negotiated away our fishing rights on entering the EEC. The traditional parties will tell you this is untrue, and that the loss of our fishing industry was simply due to the Icelandic cod wars. Well, I lived through those cod wars, and I can tell you this was nothing more than the Icelandic government realising the importance of their fishing grounds, their fish stocks, and their fishing fleets. Now, recently I visited Iceland to examine how their fishing industry has developed since reclaiming their 200-mile limit, and I would like to show you the film, and I've always wanted to say this, Run VT.
What we see behind me is the motor gunboat Odin. This is a vessel, or one of the vessels, that was used in the 70s in the Icelandic cod wars. Vessels such as this would be out there harassing, trying to stop the English vessels fishing, cutting the warps, which was very dangerous in itself, which, you know, when it's under tension and a warp that can cut, it can actually cut a man in half. But they was using every tactic that they could to stop our vessels fishing their waters. Now, what that was all about was an Icelandic government that actually appreciated the Icelandic fishing industry and knew to what value it was to their economy, and they fought very hard to stop that, stop our vessels fishing their waters. We can take that to the modern day now, where we're asking for our 200-mile waters back, and we will be saying exactly the same to the French, the Belgians, Germans, anybody else that wants to come into our waters. These are our waters, they're our fish, we're fishing them, we're going to be landing them.
Well, today I've learned that an Icelandic fisherman with an under 10 metre boat can catch 750 kilos of fish a day. My fishermen can catch 250 kilos a month. And even if it's bad weather and they don't manage to catch that fish in that month, they can't even carry it forward to the next month. So what is our government doing about that? I'm embarrassed.
We're on the docks, as you can see, the ship's behind me, and what we're doing is examining post-Brexit what sort of industry we will have, what we would like to have for our fishing industry. Now, you've got this vessel in now. It's come in early this morning, 4 o'clock. It came in, it's been turned round, and it'll be out by 10 o'clock tonight with a completely new crew. How does that system work?
Yes, we have 36 people on the boat, So 18 are at fishing each month. So they take 11 trips a year. So they take 5 trips 1 year and then 6 trips the next year. By getting a stable crew, of course, we lower our cost, and they take good care of the ship. The product is very good. It's highly quality product because the fishermen, they know exactly how many hours they can tow. We cool the fish immediately when it comes in. We package it, and we have very good clients who buy the fish from us every year because they know exactly the quality of the fish.
So we're going to 2019 we'll be out of the European Union, the CFP. You've met with Michael Gove, one of the ministers. He's come over here to speak to you. What message have you got for the British government and for the British fishermen and the British fishing industry as a whole?
I think you should just bring your Prime Minister over here and show her our industry and the labour leader and the industrial leader and also the leaders of your fishermen, and you just see what we are doing. And we have an excellent system. Yeah. It's like, how can I say, if this was football, would be the best league in the world.
The key to the success of the Icelandic fishing industry is that we put a quota system in 1984. But what we did is that all the quotas we can transfer the quotas between each ship, and it's all transparent. This is a web page from the government agency, and here you can see every boat in Iceland. You can choose, here's a boat, and you want to know how much quota the boat has. This is the tons. The boat has 250 tons of cod this year. This is sei. This is redfish, another type of redfish, and Greenland halibut. We, in cooperation with the government and the scientists, we decide ourselves how much we fish each year. Like we are fishing about 1 million to 1.5 million tons each year.
And that is sustainable?
It has been quite sustainable for 30 years.
And you haven't seen dropping off of numbers?
No, actually now the fishing stocks are very strong because we also closed many areas where the fish was spawning, where we have juveniles. If you overfish in some species, you can trade with the other vessel owners if they have that species. And also we can fish 5% over to the next year. And then we have a small rules in our system that we can help each other. And if you overfish, then you have to pay. If you cannot use those methods, you have to pay a fine. But you must bring all cats in.
I've learnt a great deal on my trip to Iceland. It's made me realise just how bad things are in the UK. To watch the way that this country has progressed and to see how much failure I have in my own country, I'm quite actually embarrassed.
When we've met with processors, we've met with trawler owners, and we've met with the technical side of it, boat building and everything like that. It is very evident now how years behind we are as an industry in Great Britain, and we have to invest into that post-Brexit. These people don't talk about fishermen no more. It's not fishermen. These are skilled, technical working people that work on these boats, and it's going to get more technical. The new boats that are coming in are fantastic for efficiency and bringing fish on board and having an industry that will be sustainable in the future.
The things I'd like implemented is the way that the industry is taken seriously. That is one thing that I have learned. I've learned that these are real people doing real jobs and bringing in money into their country and building on that. So coming out of the EU, I think we must look at the way that the Icelandics
are progressing in the fishing industry. We have great things to learn from these people, and I can see within 10, 15 years the UK starting to gradually get big again like we were.
This is not going to be an overnight success. This is going to take 30 to 40 years to bring this industry back again. We have to plan that, we have to realise that. And we have to get that across to the fishermen, that this is what we need to do to bring you up to speed, to bring you up to date, and give you an industry, and your children and your grandchildren, an industry in the future.
So as you saw in the film, by reclaiming and effectively managing the 200-mile economic zone, Iceland has created a booming fishing industry that now exports around the globe. So it comes as no surprise that British fishermen are demanding that the UK establish our own EEZ post-Brexit, as is our right under international law. However, despite our vote to leave the EU, there is still a mountain to climb regarding reclaiming the UK's fishing grounds. The simple fact is, as far as fisheries are concerned, last year's referendum was nothing more than the starting pistol, rather than the finishing line. But while we may not want to adopt Iceland's fishing system as a whole, there are many things we can learn from their model. And Iceland has achieved their present position by having a vision that started in the 50s of what their industry could be rather than what it was. A vision for an exclusive economic zone that was wholly owned and managed by the Icelandic government, free of interference from foreign interests. A vision for fisheries system aimed at benefiting the whole nation that allowed them to fully exploit their natural resources while at the same time keeping stocks sustainable. And it is this vision for fishing that we as a nation must rally around if we are ever to reclaim our seas, our fish and our rights for an EU hell-bent on maintaining the status quo. From speaking to members of fishing communities up and down the country, I know there are many outraged and determined people fighting to reclaim our maritime birthright. However, they are opposed by a government that it seems to me is on the verge of betraying our fishing industry, just like the Conservatives back in '73. Now recently Michael Gove promised Danish fishermen that their access to British waters would continue post-Brexit, in total juxtaposition to the restrictions on foreign vessels that many people would like to see. In fact, the recent Conservative manifesto revealed that they have no intention of implementing the 200-mile EEZ. Instead, only promising to reclaim our traditional waters, which means only securing the 12-mile zone. This view is reinforced every time Gove declares that we will control access, instead of saying we will restrict access. There is also a great deal of pressure coming from Brussels. Lovely place. Both Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron recently told their fishermen that they would do everything they could to fight for EU fishing rights in British waters. Added to the pressure is the recently published European Parliament Fisheries Committee paper on Brexit. The document states, and I quote, "The main objective is to guarantee a situation as close as possible to the status quo based on reciprocal rights and increased legal certainty for both parties." The same document goes on to say, "There is a need for a fisheries agreement that will enable the continuity of both parties' fisheries activities at a level and under conditions similar to those currently in place." Also included are thinly veiled threats that if we do not continue with the terms of the CFP, then the EU will limit the import of British fish products into the single market. And under the terms of the CFP, EU fishing companies will have the right to continue registering vessels under the British flag and accessing British quota using what are known in the industry as flag vessels. These vessels are foreign-owned, operated, crewed, and despite being registered in Britain, only have to land the fish once a year. While qualifying to use the little quota the EU allows us, flagships contribute next to nothing towards the UK economy and are, in my opinion, nothing more than another drain on the British fishing rights in our waters. In 1988, the government tried to update the Maritime Shipping Act to tackle this issue by demanding that fishing vessels be British-owned and that they are directed and operated from the UK, and that any charterer, manager or operator had to be a qualified person or company. However, the European Court ruled that this legislation was not compatible with the EU law, and the long-running legal battle that followed, known as Factor Team, helped to determine EU law took supremacy over UK law. Simple fact is, as a newly independent country, free of the EU, we must make use of international law to establish that we will not be bullied by an EU, upset that we've decided to leave their club. And it is only right and proper that fishing, as the first industry sold out to the EU, be one of the first benefactors of Brexit. That is why, as fisheries spokesman, I was very pleased to launch a full range of post-Brexit fisheries policies in the run-up to the June general election. Not only did these policies champion the common request from fishing communities to repeal the common fisheries policy and immediately restore sovereignty and control of the entire UK EEZ, they also looked towards the future of fishing, as Iceland did 50 years ago. Of primary concern to UKIP is the potential for the CFP to be carried over as a standalone UK legislation on the Mrs May's Great Repeal Bill. This, together with our demand that the fishing industry not be used as a bargaining chip in the EU exit negotiations, are imperative to reclaiming our waters. I'm also demanding today that once EU law no longer applies to the UK, the government acts to re-examine and strengthen the Merchant Shipping Act to close the loophole on EU companies exploiting British quota and the British flag through the use of flagships. Only once the political future of the industry is secure can we then choose what system to operate in our fisheries. And whether that system is effort control quota or a mixture of the two, we must make sure that it allows our fishing industry to work in unison, stop the obscenity of discards, and benefit both the industry and the nation as a whole. Fishing, moving forward, must be a collaboration between fishing communities, policy makers and scientists to make sure we have not only the richest fishing grounds in the world, but also the most sustainable for future generations. However, to achieve any of this, the fishing industry and the British public must unite to make sure our waters are not once again sold out and bartered away. We must speak with one voice to reclaim our rights and rebuild our capabilities as a proud fishing nation. And only the UK Independence Party is fully committed to supporting our fishing communities and reclaiming our 200-mile economic zone. That is our right under international law, together with rebuilding our fleet and connected industries. Now, if done right, the fishing industry has a possible net to plate value of £6.3 billion to the UK economy. And we should fully exploit this to provide food, jobs and income for our island nation. Thank you very much.